Hey guys, so I wanted to do a new type of video um, that was kind of done by another YouTube channel, but they just kind of stopped doing it, and I was really sad that they stopped. Um, and their videos are really good. I think the series is called Low Poly, and they basically looked at the evolution of different models and characters, character models throughout different generations. But I wanted to kind of just do a model dissection analysis sort of thing, where I take a video game model and I talk about what were the constraints of the game, and what was the target poly count, and how they managed to circumnavigate certain limitations of their hardware or anything like that. Also, uh, please like and subscribe if you like this, and let me know if you have any models you'd like to suggest. But I'd love to do this in the future. I'm not really a professional 3D artist. I'm more of an amateur, but I have known enough to kind of just be able to look around and uh, see exactly what kind of process was going on behind the scenes. And I've also looked up some presentations on. In this case, I'm dissecting a character from the mobile game Infinity Blade. I've looked at some of the dev talks about this, and so I have a little bit of idea of what's behind the scenes, but I wanted to really take a closer look. So, right here, we have the main villain of the first Infinity Blade game, Raidriar, or the God King. Um, and yeah, this is just a spectacular model. So remember, Infinity Blade was on mobile devices. So this was, I think Infinity Blade released in 2010, I want to say. uh, and it was on the very first iPad. And if you can believe that the very first iPad could run a game where they had a character with, um, down here it says 6,386 tries, that is phenomenal. I have no idea how they did it. Um, well, I do have some idea. We're actually going to get into that today. But yeah, so let's take a look at this. So I'm going to go ahead and enable my geometry wireframe here. And so let's take a look at this. There's just so much detail here. Uh, we have completely separate shoulder pads here. If you look at the underlying geo here, these are completely separated. Even the elbow pads are separated. It's just amazing model work. I can't even begin to fathom how much effort this took. These are really talented artists. I believe the team on the first Infinity Blade was somewhere around, I believe, 20 to 30 people total. So this was really impressive what they were able to get. And I believe even like the second game, I think they expanded it up to about 100 people working on the game. But they were able to produce that one within under 2 years. So, and these models are all amazing. They have different suits of armors in these games. And yeah, so let's just take a closer look here. So you can see we've got, a generous amount of geometry. In fact, they probably could have taken out this middle loop if they really, really wanted to conserve their geo, but it looks like they want to kind of just go all out. And because of the level of detail on this, I actually wonder if they had an LOD. So if I just add a decimate modifier, I'm clicking on my other window here to add this. It really preserves its detail. I'm going to go down to 0.5, and the detail is completely preserved. There's some visible distortion, but on a mobile screen, from this far off, you wouldn't be able to tell. So I do genuinely wonder if they had LOD models for the characters in the game. They didn't specify in their talk, if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, because of the level of detail, they were able to, essentially, it would be so easy to create an LOD model. You wouldn't have to do hardly anything. And then it's amazing that they were getting all this detail on the helmet here. Each of these is finely modeled and detailed. And then we're also going to go back and look at the underlying stuff. So I'm also gonna enable the normal map here display, so you can see that based off the tech talks, they did have a high poly version of this in house. They never showed this model in particular, but you can tell this was not just like painted on bump map and then convert to normal map type stuff. This was genuine geometry that was converted, or baked onto this low poly model. It's just amazing detail, and they got amazing results out of it. The way I believe that their process worked, at least this was what it was for the environments, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was this way for the characters. They have a high poly model that's completely untextured. And so they sculpt that, make it look all nice, then model the finer details, any sort of hard surfaces they model, and then they go ahead and create the low poly model around that, and you can see exactly, they really created all the fine details from the higher poly model as much as they could onto the low poly model, even to the point, this was really cool. If you look at this, it's a little bit easier to see if you just get the color shot. They actually modeled these tries along this the shape of these dense, or not dense, but like I guess rivets or valleys inside his arm, kind of forearm armor there. It's just really, really impressive stuff, and pretty genius to just, why not go ahead and follow the actual geometry of it. And looks like on the elbow, they don't have as much geometry as would be ideal to use, but they do have a significant amount to get the nice bends and stuff whenever they deform this with the skeleton. And let's go ahead and enable the normal map again. But yeah, you can see all of this detail. I'm gonna go ahead and disable the wireframe. All this detail was here. They whenever they didn't really need extra geometry, they didn't use it unnecessarily. And I imagine they just modeled the shoulder blades separate and put those away, and then brought them onto the low poly version when they were baked and everything. That's one thing that you need to make sure you do is if you are going to have separate items, I recommend just spacing them out, baking the normals, and then coming back, bringing them together, and then you can bake the ambient occlusion map, because you want to make sure the ambient occlusion map kind of matches where everything's actually at on the model. But from the normals, if you want good clean normals, you want to separate those components. Take these. You would move them out. Let me just unhide the rest of the model, and then you would make sure that everything's good to go on a normal map down here. These are nice clean bakes, so this is the way that they probably did it. Let me move that back. So yeah, this is just awesome model work. They have all these details in here. So in my opinion, there's no way that they just went for a second pass. I mean, they could have for some of the really small details, and then just did a bump map with that. That wouldn't be too surprising. One place where the model is lacking is on the boot detail down here. The sole of his boots is pretty simple. I think they just didn't care. Like, they knew that you weren't going to see this, so they didn't spend much time on that, which is kind of a shame, but at the same time, I understand. You got a budget to keep, and so I imagine that this model probably, this is what I would consider a quote-unquote hero asset. That's a kind of a terminology for games. Basically, a hero asset is something that you're going to really spend a lot of time on and give a lot of your geometry budget to, not worrying about poly counts and stuff like that. You just want to really make sure it looks good, because it's going to be something that the player notices the most. Whereas, say, something like a pillar or something that you don't need as much geo or whatever, especially if it's really far away. Just something to think about. And now I did convert this to a kind of PBR. So if I pull in my second screen over here, So this was made on kind of the legacy shading system, where they would have a specular map, a normal map, and a diffuse map, rather than albedo, specular, and roughness. And so the specular behaved differently back in the day. So I'm trying my best to, I basically split up the specular map with color ramps, and then I add those back into the channels for metallic, specular, and roughness. This is not a one-click solution, but if you have a model that doesn't have any sort of variation in materials, this is really, really useful. I wouldn't do it for something that has both skin and metal together, but if you have something that's, in this case, a suit of armor that's mostly metal, it's perfectly fine. So if I enable the, yeah, so this is the result from that, and it looks really clean. I mean, just phenomenal with its full completeness here. Don't forget that you need to make sure that I want to say this one might have a red inverted channel on the normal map, but I'm not sure. I can't remember, and it's so hard to keep track of the standards for normal maps. Sometimes they have a red inverted channel, sometimes they have a green inverted channel. I don't know. So I think I got this right in my material layout. But yeah, no, it just looks really cool. Well, oh, another thing that's really cool is the specular map. So this is what the specular map looks like on this model. It looks really cool. They have these little dots. I don't know why they have that, but it looks so cool in post. And it looks like they have a little bit of the hex grid shape down here. You can tell that this was pretty quick modeling, or not modeling, but quick texture work that they just probably unwrapped onto the kind of the UV map or whatever, and just applied it after the fact. There it is in the color map, and there it is in the specular map. And they made sure to include all the detail of the scratches and stuff on the specular map. What I think they actually did was probably they took the color map, made it black and white, just painted darker what they wanted darker, painted lighter what they wanted lighter, more reflective, and then, you know, they called it a day basically. And then they added these specific little dots, because these aren't really visible on the color map. They're slightly there, but not really. And so they probably had these dots on a separate pass, and then they made them more visible on the specular map, and then made them effectively not visible on the color map. So let's go back to the rendered view. Yeah, you can just see the amount of detail work. Another thing that's important to note is that the specular map, the way that it worked, was they used the sum of the diffuse RGB to actually get the specular working. They didn't use an actual specular shader per se, you know, where they would have like the little dot that would kind of be reflecting off towards the position of the sunlight. They actually just had an approximated specular, which is pretty interesting. It's not really used anymore, but in my opinion, like the way that you would get stuff to look good back in the day with these sorts of things was to just have the little hint of material, whereas now we kind of had the full PBR workflow, and you know, there's advantages and disadvantages. Oh, I wanted to also talk about the hands. We got the hands here, man. You know, we got looks like a full 8. Let me make sure I enabled that. Full 8 vertices on each finger, which is pretty high budget for a mobile game, like really. And that would be actually impressive budget for any sort of third-person action game on, you know, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 back in the day. But of course, like for a first-person model, like that would be very low, like, you know, absurdly low. You would want at least 10 or 12 vertices making up those fingers, at least the circular part of the fingers. But yeah, man, like this is a really cool model. I think that, yeah, here's the sole of the feet again. I think they didn't know what to do with this, so they just did whatever and called it a day, which is kind of sad, but I understand. I do like the boot design though. It looks really cool. Obviously, they didn't budget as much down here. I think they knew that your focus was going to be on the rest of the model. Same with the back. This is all flat. You know, this is not geometry. Given that if this was like on PS3 or Xbox 360, they would probably model that. But given that this is a 6,000 tries, it's just it's crazy how good that is for this amount of detail. I believe on PS3, Xbox 360, the average try count was anywhere between 10 to 20k per model. Of course, that's for the close-up version. An LOD version would probably have about this much detail, if not a little bit less. But yeah, I mean, the fact that this still kind of holds up today, at least at a distance about this far, like you'd be, with the exception of the back, I think, you'd be, perfectly fine believing that this was, current asset. I think the back was probably lower in geometry budget solely because in an Infinity Blade, of course, you're always facing the front of your enemy. So maybe on this model, the back is less detailed, but perhaps on the other suits of armor that your character actually has, the back is more detailed. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, so what I think the process was ultimately on this was we had base high poly, no textures yet. And then if we did have textures on that, they would have only been probably bump maps, I think, for like this hexagonal grid shape sort of going on here. And then we had the baking of the normal maps with the low poly version. So they went through and retopologized with low poly, and then they baked all those normal maps onto this. And then after that, they went through and just did really hard, just go to town painting this. I think, in my opinion, this is probably mostly hand painted. There probably were some like stencils they used for some of this, but in my opinion, like this does look like it was. If I go back to the standard view here, this really does look like it could have been hand painted. I don't think it would have been that much work, or it would have been this is professionally done, but not all time consuming here. They probably did a scratch layer as well, and that's what they used to inform the specular, along with just raw painting the specular map a little bit. They applied this circular sphere, or these circle textures up here. They made sure they go back through the hexagonal grid on his like chainmail type thing, his underlying armor, going through that, make sure that looks good. And then after that, they did an AO pass. And also remember, back in the day, if the diffuse map was black, your final result was black. So, the AO map was basically baked into the this diffuse map here. We don't do that anymore because the albedo is designed to be completely without light information, the raw color of an object. But in this case, back in the day, we had a little bit of the AO map baked into here. But yeah, so I think that's the process. If you have any other insights, you'd like to leave them in the comments, feel free to. I absolutely adore this model. I adored the game back in the day. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.